To be honest, it was shocking to me. Andrew Berry must be a lot smarter than me or us, because it doesn't make sense to me to trade a quarterback that you think enough of to make your opening day starter to a division opponent that's hurting in that area. But that's just my personal feelings.
Let me help you out. Let me solve it for you. It's the Browns culture versus the Steelers culture.
Yeah.
They aren't trying to win.
The Steelers always try to win.
This season was never about
right, but Jason,
winning.
he can't accept that because
that's what I'm saying. That's the difference in the Steelers culture and the Browns culture.
Yeah, that's why the Steelers are winners and the Browns are losers.
Hey, listen, I don't care if they wasn't trying to win. Sometimes you ain't trying to do something you think you got a game plan, but that game plan backfired.
The Browns just sent a message loud and clear, and Mike Tomlin never saw it coming. After that crushing 9-23 loss to the Steelers, Cleveland fans thought the nightmare was over. But this was the real explosion. Tomlin, a man who almost never shows emotion in public, finally broke the silence, and in doing so, broke one of the NFL's most sacred codes. He didn't just question the Browns' football decisions. He questioned their soul. And it all started with one simple quote: "Andrew Berry must be a lot smarter than me, because it doesn't make sense to trade your opening day starter to a division opponent." That wasn't just frustration. That was a dagger. Look, because in the NFL, you can lose games, but you can't lose respect. For Mike Tomlin to name Andrew Berry on live TV, that's like crossing the invisible line that holds the league together. Coaches and GMs don't call each other out. They live by a code of silence, of courtesy, of mutual survival. But Tomlin? He snapped. And that's where the story gets wild, because this wasn't just about Joe Flacco. It wasn't even about the Browns' embarrassing offensive collapse. This was about something bigger. A clash between the Steelers' culture of winning and the Browns' culture of confusion. As one analyst put it, that's why the Steelers are winners and the Browns are losers. Let that sink in for a second. One of the most respected coaches in football history, Tony Dungy's protege, called out his division rival, questioned their competence, and exposed the Browns' front office chaos, all in the middle of a playoff race. Do you think Tomlin went too far? Or was he the only one brave enough to say what everyone in the league was thinking? Drop your take in the comments. Because if you ask me, he knew exactly what he was doing. Tomlin's not some emotional rookie. He's a chess player. And when he went nuclear on Andrew Berry, it wasn't random, it was strategic. He was sending a message not just to Cleveland, but to everybody watching. There's a difference between losing a game and losing your dignity. And this time, it wasn't about Joe Flacco's arm. It was about Shedeur Sanders' future. See, behind all the drama, there's a generational quarterback watching from the shadows. Shedeur Sanders, Coach Prime's son, the next big thing, has been the quiet center of every front office debate in Cleveland. Every GM, every scout, every talk show host knows his name. And when Tomlin took aim at Berry, it was a warning shot that echoed far beyond this season. He was saying, this is what happens when your organization doesn't know how to treat a quarterback. Because here's the truth, Cleveland's not just making bad trades. They're making bad impressions. And in this league, perception is power. Now, if you've followed the Browns' recent history, you already know this movie. Dysfunction at every level. Contracts gone wrong. A locker room split between veterans who want to win and executives who don't seem to know how. And as the analysts pointed out, there's one rule in this business. You don't name names. You don't break the code. Because someday, that same GM or coach might need to hire you. That's the professional courtesy that keeps the NFL's back room civil. But Tomlin didn't care. He nuked it. One former assistant put it like this: when I was a GA, they told me, never call out another coach. Never name names. It's the first rule of survival. And yet, there it was, Tomlin live on air, calling out Andrew Berry by name. That's not just crossing a line. That's lighting it on fire. And the fallout was instant. Executives around the league were stunned. Reporters started calling it the shot heard round the AFC North. Because when a man like Mike Tomlin speaks, people listen. But here's where it gets even darker.
Coaches and guys, this is not normal. Coaches in the league and general managers in the league.
Don't do that.
This is not
Especially Tomlin.
Hey, when they told me, I said I wanted to be a GA one point in time, they said the first thing you got to know is coaches go by a code of conduct. You never call a coach out. You don't even fire coaches during the middle of the season because sometimes you don't know when you need to be hired by somebody else. They give them, this is what we call a professional courtesy. You don't name nobody's name in the front office because Andrew Berry might be the person that need to hire Mike Tomlin one day. And guess what? He like, I feel you so incompetent, I'm taking that chip off the table. I don't want to go with you. I'm not eating birthday cake with you ever.
It's a code of conduct.
It's a code.
But here's what, to build on what you're saying. It is a code of conduct.
Because while the Browns are imploding,
one theory started floating around that Andrew Berry didn't actually make the Joe Flacco trade. He just executed it. That maybe, somewhere behind the scenes, ownership or an executive higher-up called the shot. And Tomlin knew it, meaning that viral clip wasn't really about Andrew Berry at all. It was about the shadow figure behind him. And when Tomlin said Berry's name, he was sending a coded message to the real decision-maker. You know who you are. I see you. What do you think, Gridiron Insights family? Was this personal between Tomlin and Berry? Or was Tomlin aiming higher at Cleveland's ownership? Because if you know Tomlin, you know he doesn't do anything by accident. And what's wild is how perfectly the timing lined up. Just days after losing 9-23 to the Steelers, when Cleveland's morale was at rock bottom, Tomlin twisted the knife. Not out of spite, but to make a statement. This is the difference between us and them. Between Steelers' culture and Browns' chaos. And that's the part nobody in Cleveland wants to admit. The truth hurts worse than the loss. But what made this whole situation explode wasn't just Tomlin's words. It was the reaction inside the Browns building. Because people weren't just embarrassed, they were scared. If coaches around the league start following Tomlin's lead, calling out front offices by name, this entire code of conduct that's kept the NFL's inner circle polite could crumble overnight. And here's where the Shedeur Sanders angle becomes real. Because every young quarterback entering the league is watching how these teams handle their own. And what they're seeing from Cleveland. It's ugly. You've got a GM accused of incompetence. You've got ownership rumored to be overriding football decisions. You've got a locker room tired of pretending this is about rebuilding. And meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, the guy who could actually change a franchise, is watching all of this unfold. He's seeing how the Browns handled Baker Mayfield, how they mishandled Deshaun Watson, how they traded Joe Flacco mid-season. And he's thinking, is this the kind of front office I'd want to play for? Because when you're a franchise quarterback, you don't just choose a team, you choose a culture. And right now, the Browns' culture looks radioactive. But we're not done yet. Because if you thought this was about pride or ego, wait till you see what's next. The analysts didn't just blame Berry, they called out the entire Browns organization for making the worst trade in NFL history. The day after Mike Tomlin's comments, the air around Berea felt different. The Browns facility was quiet, not the calm kind, but the kind that comes right before something breaks. Reporters were circling. Players were whispering. And Andrew Berry? He was nowhere to be seen. Because when the man who built the house disappears right after it catches fire, you know there's more to the story. Tomlin didn't just rattle the Browns, he exposed them. He said out loud what every insider in the league already knew. The Browns are a team pretending to compete while slowly self-destructing from the top down. Remember when he said, they aren't trying to win? That wasn't a jab. That was a diagnosis. Because here's the truth, the Browns' collapse didn't start with Joe Flacco. It started with a contract, the Deshaun Watson contract, that has now become one of the worst decisions in NFL history. Let's break that down. The Browns gave up 3 first-round picks, 2 third-rounders, and a 4th for a quarterback who hasn't been healthy, hasn't been consistent, and hasn't been the leader this locker room needed. That's 6 future starters gone. And the return? A quarterback who's been outplayed by backups, booed by fans, and locked into $230 million guaranteed. You don't recover from a deal like that. You survive it. The analysts on that panel said it best. The Deshaun Watson trade isn't just bad, it's the worst in NFL history. They compared it to Herschel Walker, to Russell Wilson, to Trey Lance. But none of those trades crippled a franchise the way this one has. Because at least those teams bounced back. The Broncos found Bo Nix. The 49ers found Brock Purdy. The Browns? They're still looking. And that's the part that stings. Because when you swing and miss on a quarterback that badly, and then double down by trading your next best option, you're not rebuilding anymore. You're burying yourself. Think about that. Tomlin knew exactly what message he was sending. This wasn't just shade, this was strategy. Every young quarterback prospect, every agent, every scout watching ESPN that night got the memo loud and clear. You see how they treat quarterbacks in Cleveland? Don't let that be you. And Shedeur Sanders, the biggest name in college football right now, was definitely watching. Because if you're Shedeur, you're thinking long-term. You're watching how franchises treat players, how they protect their quarterbacks, how they build cultures. And from the outside looking in, Cleveland looks like chaos. Be honest, Gridiron Insights fam. If you were Shedeur Sanders, would you trust the Browns to build around you? Or would you take your talents to a team that actually understands how to win? Let me know in the comments. Because here's where things get deeper. Inside the Browns organization, the people defending Andrew Berry say he's not the villain, he's the scapegoat. One panelist even said it. Andrew Berry didn't make that decision. He executed it. In other words, somebody higher up, someone with real power, told him to pull the trigger. And that means the real problem in Cleveland isn't the GM. It's the ghost in the owner's box. Ownership meddling. Front office confusion. Coaching staff turnover. It's the same cycle the Browns have been trapped in for years. They draft talent, burn through it, panic, overpay, and then hit reset. Meanwhile, their division rivals, like the Steelers, build slow, steady, and consistent. That's the culture war Mike Tomlin was talking about. He wasn't just protecting his reputation, he was planting his flag. He was saying, this is how winning franchises operate. And that is how you lose your soul. Because in football, talent wins games, but culture wins eras. And right now, Cleveland's culture is collapsing in real time. After that 9-23 loss to Pittsburgh, the cracks widened. You could see it in the players' faces. Confusion, frustration, disbelief. They're professionals. They want to win. But when leadership keeps moving the goalposts, how long before the locker room gives up? One analyst even said it out loud. This season was never about winning. They're just trying to get through the year. Think about that you've got players putting their bodies on the line every Sunday, and the people in charge have already waved the white flag. How do you build a winning culture when your own front office doesn't believe in it? That's why Tomlin snapped. That's why he broke the code. Because to him, to men like him, football's not just a business. It's a brotherhood. There's a way things are done. And when you see a team tearing that apart from the inside, you can't just sit quietly anymore. And that's the moment Mike Tomlin stopped being a coach and became a truth teller. Because what he said wasn't about pride, it was about principle. He saw a franchise making reckless moves, disrespecting the game's unwritten rules, and risking the future of one of the league's brightest prospects. And the craziest part? He did it knowing there'd be backlash. He did it knowing people would say he crossed the line. But he also knew the truth. Sometimes the only way to expose dysfunction is to drag it into the light. And now that light's shining directly on Cleveland, ownership can deny it all they want. They can say Andrew Berry's safe. They can call Tomlin's comments unprofessional. But the damage is done. Every GM, every coach, every quarterback prospect has now seen exactly what kind of chaos lurks behind those orange helmets. And for Shedeur Sanders, a player built on discipline, confidence, and family values, that kind of instability is poison. Because when you're building a legacy, you don't sign up for dysfunction. You avoid it. That's why this story matters. It's not about Joe Flacco's trade or Tomlin's temper. It's about what kind of football world Shedeur Sanders is about to walk into. A world where loyalty and leadership still matter, and where one coach, by breaking an unwritten rule, might have saved a young quarterback from walking into a disaster. So, what happens next? Will Andrew Berry survive the backlash? Will Cleveland's ownership finally take responsibility? Or will Tomlin's outburst be remembered as the moment the Browns officially lost control of their narrative? Because one thing's for sure, after that 9-23 beating and this public explosion, the Browns aren't just fighting for respect, they're fighting for relevance. And in a league built on reputation, that might be the hardest comeback of all. This has been another deep dive from Gridiron Insights, where we bring you the stories behind the scoreboards. If you think Mike Tomlin crossed a line, or if you think he just told the truth nobody else would say, let us know in the comments. And if you believe Shedeur Sanders deserves a better NFL future than this, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more real NFL talk every week. Because here, we don't just talk football, we talk truth.